God live og god aften, Danmark. Hej alle sammen. Sorry, English is the language. It's good to be with you this evening, and I'm glad to see that already so many of you have showed up. And I'll just unplug the right cord here, and then I'll call in the Solons. They have a lot to say today, I think, and I hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world on this day of the sun, and that you have some questions that might be answered. And also, I should remember to say this. Thank you for liking, sharing, subbing your comments and your donations, and for being here and taking part in this co-creation and the energy that we help build here together. So without further ado, I'll bring in our friends from the future, and hope you have a good one. Yes, hello. It is almost amusing for us to again experience how it is to have a human body here for a moment, as we lend the body here of our friend to communicate with you this evening, our sweet forefathers. You have our blessings, and you have our love, and you have our undivided attention as we try to steer you into the positive timelines that we are coming to you from, and that we anticipate that you will be a part of. We have many images we could bring you. We hope that some of them will strike a fancy and light the light within you to make you see clearly ahead in what may sometimes seem as darkness. See, we merged with the sun, and before we did this, we began to explore the full nature of light. Light is in and of itself what the universe is created of. You see, on a quantum state, the information that you generate by being alive and interacting with the life force that charges you from the sun, it is transmitted back to the central energy of the star. And from that central energy, it works as a nodal point in a grand network, much as your technology of servers and internet works as different nodal points for the generation of the total field. And so human experience is being transmitted by your star back into the networks of the cosmos. And the sun is, of course, in and of itself, a part of other celebrated constellations in other parts of this galaxy, as they also get to see it shine on their night sky, as you see their suns as stars at night. We would like to remind you that you are seated in Aquarian energies, and you are merging into the definite realization of the Aquarian within your own energy fields and experience. See, we believe it was in a musical of the 60s or 70s that it was sung that this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, and that was the dawning, and this is noon. Notice we are coming to you at this auspicious time in that part of the world where many of you are joining us from. It is noontime. It is the time where man crosses into maturity. This means that you are experiencing some impediments. You see this great force of energy that is coming in for you to streamline into your being. It clashes up against banks and impediments in its way towards the coast, the unified field of your divine nature. And so think of yourself as a spiritual builder of dams. That is to say, find out where you want to construct things within yourself that help direct the flow of energy in more helpful directions. This is the time for you to seek to help where you can and seek assistance where you feel you need it. Human beings are connecting to each other in this energy of the great communicator. There is something that cannot be held apart any longer, and that is the instinct of the human heart. It is the vital instinct that you have suppressed for a long time through this journey through civilization, and that you are now beginning to integrate and becoming natural beings, at least as much as you are civilized beings. And that takes a type of toll on you, but we are here to guide you and to let you know that it is all right. And with that introduction, we know that some of you will find helpful. We are so happy to be here with you this evening. We bless you and we look forward to answering your questions. Thank you. Yes, and thank you everyone for the sweet hellos. Hello, guys. Yes, Ketul Shah asks, when do we get to meet other versions of ourselves? Maybe you could elaborate on that, Ketul, because I'm not quite sure what we mean, and they're telling me that as long as you're connecting to past lives or spirit guides or anything, those are technically other versions of yourself. But elaborate, and we'll get them to answer it. And Jana asks, which is my galactic family or my guides I connect to most easily? Thank you. Yes. This is interesting. You have a big family in the cosmos, and we sense that what is calling out to you now is a type of collective of bright energies. They say they come from a star system that's unfamiliar to the consciousness we are coming through, but it lists itself as the Asrogon. Asrogone, Astrogone. And it's interesting. They have, you can imagine them as white feathered birds with great protruding foreheads. They are very alien looking, but they are present in your experience now because there's a type of encirclement of your torso region, in particular your stomach region. So the thing from below your solar plexus and then approximately down to the top of your hip bones, there is a type of encircling of that energy. And these astrogone, they want you to know that at some of the disturbances that you have been experiencing in your digestion are actually a type of upgrades, because there's some unprocessed pain there that they like to connect with. And a way to connect to them would be to quiet your mind, and then you could think of the storks, call in the energy of the stork. It's a very powerful and spiritual bird that also flies and goes its own ways and has its own wisdom, memory, and knowledge. It also bonds to things it holds dear, and we sense that this energy is important to you. And by calling in them, you can simply use the sound of we know it's not so pretty, but you will sense if you try to purify that sound within your mind and look beyond the fact that it was brought through a male human throat, you will find the vibration that can actually help you pull them in, because it's far more harmonious. It's perhaps more like around that level, they will come forward. And we bless you, and we extend the message from them that they are looking forward to communicating with you more than they have been. You have their love and assistance, and you have ours. Thank you. Yes, Kevin asks, uh, I'm interested in how future technologies will mirror the way plants and trees operate. Could you go more into detail on this topic that we will see in the 2020s, 2030s, and beyond? That's a great question. Yes, you see, you have already begun crossing that line in the field you call the nano, which is in sense the same technology that enzymes operate with. That is to say, you're beginning to understand the biological, as a counterpart to what you have realized in your technology of microchips and transistors. That is to say, simple circuits that then realize a binary function and then guide electrical currents through them. And now you are understanding that biology often operates on, let us say, more complex circuits. That is to say, they're built from molecular patterns that are built from atoms that are then again built from these minor subatomic components. But what happens is that certain atoms or certain molecules and complex molecules, such as in biological life, have certain receptor codes. And when you begin to build these closed circuits, that is to say, when you begin to develop a certain type of receptors within a cell, you can then begin to match it to a certain type of transmitting units. And there's actually a way for you to align with this type of experience. And a way would be to seek out evergreen trees and then to spend some time communing with their energy. And you will notice that what begins to happen is not only that you feel a soothing calm in your system, but that soothing calm is actually also arises from the different level of terpenes and other biomolecules that are transmitted into your different senses and then has a vibrationally soothing effect on you. And this is the technology that you are exploring in the 2020s. And you are beginning to see some of the first stages of this in, oh, we are afraid we cannot scan from the channel's memory at present, which one of the vaccines it is that has this different type of nano transmitting mechanism, which works on the fact that it then works the spike protein instead of actually making the cell sick. And this is a type of way of understanding that when you hit certain biological structures with certain minute transmitter components, you are able to alter the technology. And that would also, you will begin to see within your botany, working away from the idea of GMOs as such, and then working into the idea of, yes, you could say biological stimulation of certain dormant codes within the plants, which will make you, well, you will be able to then alter and create different patterns of plants and make these plants behave differently. And it's interesting that you were already on track with this, in a sense, intuitively, with the development of nuclear technology. And there's an anecdote we are bringing forward. We remember this vessel we are coming through. We remember him reading in a lexicon from the 50s how different forms of radioactive isotopes would begin to make, well, lush areas out of barren deserts and would begin to greatly increase the level of produce in arid regions such as the Sahel, for instance. And of course, radioactive food isn't healthy for you, but it is, well, it is the first intuition that there is somehow some great subatomic disturbance at play that you can actually begin to build into molecules and then work into them. And we hope that has illuminated that question. And we look very much forward to seeing how you explore this. It's a great and fun journey for you to begin to create nature in this way. Yes. Thank you. We love you too. Second, I'm at home a lot of the time. Country SD alone. How can I help the collectives most from where I am? Thank you for all you are and do. Yes. Well, from our perspective, you are not really alone, but you are physically isolated. And what you are essentially doing right now is you are acting as a type of lightning rod for a lot of higher dimensional energy. So it's being beamed into you and down into the ground in the area you are located. And we without scaring you, would let you know that the people who move into that place after you have moved on will have an odd time, well, being there without like having the sense that their vibration is being challenged, and somehow it brings up stuff that they don't know how to handle, because that is one of the ways you are helping. But also notice that you are quite good at connecting to people and with open-hearted communications. And we suggest that you explore this in different venues, that you actually take some of your experiences and put them together coherently, and then connect with other people who are into this field and share them. And we also sense, for instance, that the spiritualization of your relationship to pets, which has been growing, your relationship to animals is becoming quite different as you move into the fifth dimension. And we are not only addressing you here, Crystal, but humanity as a whole. But you in particular are embodying this process. And this type of spiritualization is also important to put into words and to then share with people. And you will be called to do this with the right people. And we sense there is a great unfolding in that also for you. And we know that that physical space will begin to change around you when it is time. So you are where you need to be, and that is perfectly well and all right. And we bless you in that. Well, yes. And or ask your question again if you feel. Oh, yes, perfect. Thank you. And Ketil asks, in our timeline, when is humanity expected to meet our soul families in physical form? And when can we start connecting through channeling instead of our own masses? Oh, perfect. Yes, thank you so much for elaborating. Well, you could say, in a sense, you are already connecting to us now. That is to say, all of you who are participating in this are channeling more and more positive energy of what humanity could be into your own system, and thereby actually beginning to set that alight. For instance, we know that, of course, there is a perceived difference between the idea of spoken trance channeling, the idea that a person sits and translates energies and messages coming through from higher dimensional, non-physical space. But you are, in a sense, by embodying that energy, already channeling it into to yourselves. You are also, by focusing on these different points of influxes and feeling how they begin to alter your own life, you are, in a sense, already channeling them. And so this will remain a type of niche experience. It is growing, but you will never exactly necessarily see this type of experience as Saturday night entertainment, because it's also can be a little disconcerting for many people. That is to say, it has been quite normal throughout human experience that there are human beings who resonate more with the physical spaces and resonate more with practical tasks, and who do not necessarily prefer to have this information. And they have sort of, through different times and ages, of course, also learned to appropriate themselves to different spiritual systems. but in a sense they have shifted around me. So these practical people who are much of that frequency, they don't actually really care whether or not, well, the priest is in an acolyte of Hotep, or he works in the temple of Artemis, or he's dedicated to the Sol Invictus, or he's a Catholic priest or whatever. He just wants someone to bury his mother and to say some prayers over her when she passes, and that's perfectly all right. So there is a type of special attention here, and those of you who connect to that, you can expect to begin to connect to your non-physical selves in a much grander scale without these. You can see these next 3 years as a type of transitional years where you are, in a sense, creating the very open framework of what will be possible. And therefore the timelines are somewhat shifting, but we do sense in the place that you personally are coming from, that from 2027, there is a great likelihood that you will begin to have more open contact with these individuals. But the paradox, of course, is that these individuals or your staff family, they won't necessarily manifest themselves fully physically as other beings that you interact with before you have reached the conclusion that you actually prefer to run the Earth game yourself. That is to say, there is this, we wouldn't say fear, but apprehension between your star races of seeing the consequences of your free will play out and wanting you to arrive in a place where you realize that you are an equal among the stars and that you're able to build a sustainable system that works for you and where you unfold your energies. And you will also begin to experience, many of you in these coming 3 years, that experiences such as telepathy or levitation or other things you might think of as classical magical powers will actually become more and more readily available to a small minority of spirit workers, because you will begin to alter your vibration into it, and there isn't this dissonance between the earthy energies of your and then highly elevated spiritual energies, which there was before. Now these things are melding, and therefore there is a lot of fun you can do exploring in these energies, and we sense that you personally, Kitul, you will have an interesting journey doing this. And we sense the manipulation of force fields might be a way for you to really get started on your talents as an energy worker, that you're actually very capable of moving around greater fields of energy. And we sense that disciplines such as Qigong or Tai Chi would be helpful in approaching this, building up a pace of slow energy work and moving it into something grander. And you have our blessings and assistance in this, and we love you for it. Thank you. Yes. And Marianne asks, can you see any obstructions in any of my chakras? And if yes, how can I help them to clear? Yes. We thank you for the work you are doing. Know that these chakras are, in a sense, all obstructed, but it's not uncommon for people to have them obstructed. Rather, realize that if you cleared out what is known in Indian physiognomy as the Sushumna, so the central spiritual line that connects you to the all or the great or the soul, and connects your physical body to that line, was perfectly cleared out, most of you would have such an epileptic fit that your bodies wouldn't be able to handle it. So there's certain grace in these elements being integrated slowly. So do not worry that there is something that might be blocking you, because the blocks are from the greater spiritual perspective, the idea that there are new games to play and other things to remove. You could think of it almost as when you move around the Monopoly board, the stakes get higher and higher, and it gets more and more dangerous to land on those fields where there are cells, but that also means that like it's more and more fun to have others land on them, and it's more and more of those obstacles. So it's when you raise the stakes of the game, you also raise the level of gratification that it might hold. And therefore we sense that your heart will be the best place to start to open. And it a technique that we would recommend, and we recommend this for all of you, though it's similar to that dance we believe is called the chicken, and it actually you try to pack your hands evenly. Your shoulders are squared and spread apart into your armpits, and then you raise by gently applying a pressure with the back of your hands into your rib cage. You then begin to raise up, and you focus as you breathe into your heart, and you will sense that there is actually a type of space that you sense by that slight feeling of compression will then begin to expand, and that's a way to activate it. And there's also the classic gymnastic exercise of extending your arms and then rotating to one side and to the other, while trying to keep your head aligned with your back, and that's also very helpful. And there's no need to overdo it. These exercises can be done as gently as needed and prescribed by your own sense of what is helpful. And we bless you and thank you for undertaking the quest, and we love you for it. Yes, and I think I've seen it, Diana, but I will just jump to someone who hasn't been, who hasn't had their questions answered, and then I'll return to the others. Laura asks, do some of become higher dimensional still connected with Gaia? If so, what is the relationship like between the two collectives and all who have assisted our ascension? Yes. Thank you for that beautiful question and for the images we are allowed to share with you. We hold the imprint of our Great Mother very dearly to us, and we still observe what's going on both in the past and in these timelines, but also in both future realities and in our sense of present, you might think it as, which is removed from you into the future by some millennia where we are coming to you from now. But see, in a conversation with another channeler, this individual had that she believed that there are many other Arcturians, and then that made him wonder because he only connected with Brits. And then it hit him that, of course, when entities in other parts of the galaxy are channeling Earthlings, they might well go, which Earthlings do you mean the bipedal ones with the funny hands with the five limbs extending out of it and all the holes in their head, or do you mean the merry cetaceans with the sharp fins who go around and swim around the globe, or do you mean the ones with the tusks and the long trunk? Because there are actually many energies that are moving towards ascension in different patterns, and you are sort of also mercifully cut off so much from the participation in those projects within you that, for instance, the dolphin or the elephant spirit is something that has become far more elevated as humankind learn to retreat back from that experience, and then also let other natural energies lend themselves and unfold on Earth. So those are some of the ascended species that still participate in the goings on of Mother Gaia after we have left it. And there will be a whole elephant ascension that is not too different from human ascension that will play out over approximately another 5 million years 5.2 is the number that we are transmitting. And this is in an instance, for instance, an example of an ascended species, but there have been others both in your past. And so Mother Earth lends her energy to many species. The Sasquatch who are present with you, though usually at a different vibrational frequency of Gaia, are also moving in the sixth dimension regularly and are moving towards ascension. They have in a way also completed their journey towards the stars, though they haven't united their physical bodies with it. We know this is very hard to understand in chronological terms, but it has to do with the workings of energy and the vibratory patterns spread into the infinite now. And so these are species, and Mother Gaia herself will at one point also complete her ascension, though she is perfectly aware of what she is lending herself to. But right now you also sense that she is shaking out a lot of her previous energies, and much as you have been experiencing weird physical symptoms, many of you connected with these changing energies, so is your planet. And we would, for instance, point to the very notable bout of bad weather. We believe we can term it properly in the southern United States. And for instance, the area that we are coming to from you just had the highest level of recorded earthquakes that it has ever seen. So there are many of these instances of extreme weather that are happening as she herself rolls off the ascension pains. And there will be less and less, you could say, grave manipulation of her materials tolerated on her surface. So it will, in a sense, begin to make humans who do it sick. And that is the way that you will begin to also experience consciousness shift in people you not consider as conscious as you yourself could be described as. That is to say, not as understanding of the complexity and connection of everything, and the physical and the non-physical and the spiritual and the material, but they will begin to feel a greater instinct to, for instance, not litter with plastics, or to not work with metals, but instead to live in wooden areas or environments. Those will be some of the things that you will begin to prioritize. And we hope that answered this beautiful question, at least some, because we will let you know that both the planet and you are on the right path. And we are so happy that you asked us this. Our blessings to you, our love and our gratitude. Yes, and Davante Branch asks, hello again, Mads. Hello. Would I have any counterparts in your society? If so, how could I connect more fully with them? Yes, and yes, that is a beautiful question. See, you have quite a few counterparts in our society, but the way to think of it is that it is in essentially the difference as you could perceive it from between the 8th dimension and the 9th dimension. That is, in the 9th dimension, you no longer necessarily have personality patterns. Sometimes you create them to present them to other entities who interact with you. Such as is, for instance, the idea of Umblam of the Arcturian Council, who was a counterpart in a previous incarnation, but then comes forward through this channel to relate personally to personal entities. And in the 8th dimension, there are still personalities, but we have merged into a type of great knowing or collective understanding at the same time. And so you could think of your counterparts more as archetypal patterns, different basic magical patterns that sustain the whole. And so, for instance, we know this might sound strange, but you are connected to a great force that's called diagonal. And it's simply that, like, it's a maintenance of a type of dimension within our own geometric grid that we use to focus ourselves as conscious beings in the sun, where you make these connections diagonally. That is to say, what is resonating already in your human life right now is quite a powerful ability to connect things that might seem separate, but do have some quality of, by counterposing them, actually bringing balance to the opposing forces, so to speak. And that would be one. Another type of archetype would then be one you could think of as sustainer. You might think of her more as mother. That is the motherly energy, but we think of it more as the type of sustainment component. That is to say, someone who actually invests a type of basic, helpful, earthy energy, what creates the framework again. And so we sense that much of your counterpart resonance is connected to this service of dimensionality, which is beautiful. You could think of it as an angelic pattern that is carried out, but in the workings of the sun instead of the upper non-physical dimensions. But it is a and sublime and exquisite joy lived out in servitude to the correct flow of the light. And that is such a beautiful task to uphold. And therefore we thank you for it, and we sense that this will awaken a type of energetic grid within you, and we would like to offer you the vibration of to set your light alight, and to know that you are a flame that burns eternally. Be blessed, know you are loved, our gratitude for being. Yes, and Jennifer, dear 8D beings, can you tell us a bit more about the eighth chakra, Ultra Major? Is this a gateway you got in our bodies? Can you tell us about the oracle capabilities we are now supposed to reawaken? Wonderful questions coming to the table this day, guys. Thank you so much. Yes, the Ultra Major. It's a very beautiful word, and we are brought again to this image of the nourishing. You could think of it, of course, as a type of showerhead, but we want to give you the image of a reverse showerhead, that the way you sort of pour the diamond light of your completed creation, you pour it dropwise into this sieve, and then it sort of it funnels it down into the concentrated setting a light of that star chakra, which then surrounds your body. So the eighth chakra is in a sense quite interesting because it's not isolated, so it's non-localized, and that's also why you would perceive it as non-physical, and that is what you are realizing in a sense by connecting to the fifth dimension. You are becoming gradually aware. The way you can think of the dimensions is, of course, that they, much as you grow, as a child grows older, they can suddenly see what's on the kitchen top counter, though the tall adults could see it all the time. So in that sense, from a higher dimensional perspective, you can glance somewhat up into the dimensions, and that is what you're doing by this ascension, is that you're then beginning to glance the possibility of the eighth star chakra, which is in a sense the quantum. That's to say that you yourself generate a type of creative light that is brimming with information, and it's the information that you invest in it, but the information sort of rises from your spirit or your soul, which is focused in that eighth chakra, and then it's being funneled through your physical self. And so the oracle properties that are coming, many of you are experiencing in different ways. And you could of course say that an obvious sense is like this individual who's bringing through non-physical energies. A lot of you are experiencing it in quite other ways. We answered a question for a friend of the show, Crystal, who then yes, we need, yes, that was a funny expression. But we answered a question for this individual who in a sense is also fulfilling an oracle purpose, because you could think of the oracle as the funnel that channels infinity into specific directed action. And that is, it puts the elements where they need to be put in order to create an image of the whole that makes you remember what it is. And since we are acquainted with you both spiritually, and have interacted with you before, we know that this work that you are building is becoming more and more infused by a type of awareness, like the awareness of vision. And that is, in a sense, the oracle ability. It's the idea of this certitude, or deep knowing, security, actually, resolve, determination, like all these abilities that where you listen to your intuition, and your intuition is becoming not something vague that is asking to be listened to, but something that's actually just trying to carry itself out into the world, and then you get to latch onto it by raising your vibration. And that's the way you ride that train into the future, and become immersed with your soul being the eighth chakra, where you are actually aware of everything and a participant in everything through that network of light that is your innermost being. Bless you very much, and we thank you for the work you are carrying out in aligning humanity with this truth. Our love to you. Hey, and hologenics, yes, thank you for saying that. Yes, smash that like button, people. Wonderful. Um, and then we say, oh, here's another questioner. Nay, do you have some connection to elf species? Are there some other interdimensional populations like elves in danger due to people's destructive behavior on Earth? And how can we help them? Thank you. It's a very interesting. It's a very interesting question. We sense that we separated from some of these. You could again revert to the image of the dam. So we separated from some of these more elfish, elven energies, in order to become more aligned with the astral. And so we do sense that on the timelines that are moving forward, there's these energies have been retreating, such as the playfulness, the inner child, and the playfulness of the child has been retreating, and it will make a type of comeback. But they have retreated into the woods, and the elves also exist typically on a, we mentioned, typically exist on a different broadband, but it's one that goes closer to, you could say, the core vibration of Earth. That is to say that they're more able to switch themselves into something that's so similar in vibration to wood or stone or natural elements, that they don't necessarily become that threatened. But of course, they haven't necessarily aligned with the progress of civilization. And so there are different, well, when we use the word elfin tribes, and what we are imagining, we would inform you, is what is called Nissa in the channel's language. Is these type of little tykish creatures that are usually a couple of apples high, and then live in these magical sort of middle spaces between nature and mankind. And there are different ones. It's called they call them the Luo. So it's an L, an O, an O, an O. Um, and they reside primarily in Scotland. They say they come from Scotland, and there they have sort of retreated to the Highlands, and that's a place where they will begin to stay until some of these areas are then left to reconstitute, and there they will begin to grow, and they will have their own experiences tending and keeping to Mother Earth, and they're quite happy with this, but they aren't too happy with humans as they are now. They would love for you to remember them more and to bring them courage. And in many traditional religions, it is still common practice to have kind of altar to the spirits that protect the house and the family or the ancestors or the natural environments, and to also bring them a little something worth of an offering. And this would actually be very helpful for those of you who also want to remember nature and also want to appease some of those little more chaotic forces that might play tricks on you sometimes. That is our encouragement, and we thank you very much for allowing us to connect with these. It's been a long time since we ourselves have communicated with this energy. So our blessings to you and our love. Yes. Okay, Kevin asks, and this is not my strong suit, so I hope I will translate, understand the question correctly, and they will pick up on it. But it says, could you detail how you perceive epigenetic markers and the methylation process as it relates to health, well-being, and longevity? Thank you. So yes, the way we perceive it is you are essentially asking whether or not the body will begin to how it reconstitutes itself through methylation. And well, since we are not necessarily fully aware of the framework within which this question makes sense, we can then answer that methyl in and of itself is a type of combustive agent. You of course know this to be true, but there is the idea that there is a certain wear and tear within your cells that is also related to things that are perhaps, well, vibrationally connected to some very coarse energies of digestion. And therefore we sense that it is actually not bad. We will take this in the direction that it would be healthy for you to watch which foodstuffs you consume that makes you very flatulent in a very bloated way, because this is actually a sign that your cells are somewhat energetically moving apart from themselves. And so this integration or rehealing process, regeneration process that human cells naturally undergo is slowed down, and so much of the food stuff that you ingest right now is slowed down, and that is and essentially slows down that healing process, and that is in and of itself a type of vibrational alignment that you're moving within, or that you're moving towards, and the spectrum that you're moving within is not necessarily conducive to where you imagine yourself going. And that is why it would be helpful to, we sense, to a large degree experience the idea of seeds, soaked seeds in different senses, pulverized seeds, different, yes, the bounty of the trees that you have for so long forgone in favor of the bounty of, for instance, the cereals or the bounty of the rice plant. And there we sense that moving back to, we believe perhaps some of the names, such as, is it called buckwheat, would be very helpful for the human constitution. And we hope we have understood that question correctly, or you are very welcome to rephrase it. And we thank you and we bless you on this quest, and we love you for it. Yes. I'll just move back to see, because I think we're down to second question. So I think Ketul say, some say humanity will begin to explore the space, solar system, and the galaxy. According to others, all the technology will break down and we will go back to natural life. Could you please clarify? Yes, it's a quite beautiful question. And we would remind you that you all have already begun to explore these things. You have also explored them in ages past, where your sages and your seers and your holy men, your astronomers and your learned people began to discern the movements of the heavens and figured out the basic vibrations of this space that holds you or constitutes you. That is to say, if you go into the teachings of the Kabbalah, for instance, you will find that there are certain vibrations that trigger a type of altercation of space, even the space you are within. But now we know we are pointing to, or you are pointing to the exploration of outer space. And it has, in a sense, you have just landed on Mars the other day, we believe, and there you will begin to uncover some information. But what we see is that there's not necessarily a type of strong watershed between these two elements. That is what we are pointing to, and the timeline that we emerge from is one where we began to understand that many technologies actually work better biologically. That is to say that, for instance, we can launch genetic material into space, and actually when you move into higher dimensional experience, you will be able to keep track of these movements of that material from Earth as it moves out into different unknown reaches of the cosmos. And there you will then be able to keep track of these projects over generation from generation. Notice, for instance, that this is in a sense what you have built in some of your religious systems or religious architecture. These buildings that take generations to complete, but that are somehow also always visible as an image of eternity boiled down into space from the perspective of eternity. And so you will also begin to move into nature. That is to say, begin to realize and resonate more with biological processes, with the slower movements of nature. And there will begin to be a type of merging of these two fields where you will begin to also generate electrical fields from the presence of biological matter, not by burning it, but by simply letting it undergo, for instance, fermentation and then harvesting some of these energies. Those are examples we could use, but you could have the idea, of course, of, which is not uncommon already, as a type of positive vision of how to exist, of you perhaps living in a wooden hut or a yurt or something that's organically decomposable, but still a little garden, an image of civilization that keeps you snug and comfortable. And there you're related to this type of, well, it is a technological construction, but it is a type of human oversoul called the internet that moves things around and shifts consciousness and interacts with you. And this is perhaps the way to understand where technology is moving. It's becoming far more responsive to individual needs and demands. And so instead of being like an exploration of how much can we extract and then how much can we turn into stuff that nature can't decompose, then it will instead be the idea that, well, you can in fact create a system that can intuitively deliver the type of foodstuffs and the type of materials you will need in a way that then will not be impeded by phenomenon such as junkyards or things, because they will be able to decompose in a timely manner. It's a quite a beautiful vision, and we know you have it in your hearts, and therefore we simply ask you to follow that path there. And you have our love in this process and our gratitude for going there. Yes, I think there was yes. It was just, I believe there was one person who I didn't see before. Okay, we'll just pop to some questions here. Um, yes. Crystal asks, do I have an astral world within, just outside of me, that I am familiar with? Newish area for me. How might we connect or interact for the good for each of us and all? Thank you. Yes, you may have heard as within, so without, and as above, so below. And this dictum holds more true now than it ever did. That is to say that the spiritual family or the astral family you have within you is also without you or outside you. So there's not necessarily any separation, because what is actually happening from our spiritual perspective is that these things that are outside of you are condensed into, you could say, an attention point so dense that it lives itself out as an idea of a physical being, a physical experience. So you could use the metaphors which some of you have begun using and grown quite fond of. It encompasses both the idea of a something created from the outside, but also something that's so engaging as a type of play, or what the Indians call Maya, that it's also very well compelling, and that is to say that you are fully invested. It's not that this reality is a lesser reality. It is the manifestation of the most important thing that could be going on for the entire astral family. But you do, in a sense, connect to them by remembering this dictum, and it's perhaps expressed the most effortlessly. And we believe it was Giordano Bruno who said that the body is not within, the soul is not within the body is within the soul. And this is actually the way to understand it, that your soul encompasses all things, and then it condenses into this body. And that is, in a sense, again, the eighth dimensional energy. That is the thing that encompasses all things. So you are already doing the work of establishing contact with that astral family, which is very alive and very present with you. And there are some techniques, but we would, in your case, actually encourage the idea of dancing. And then when you dance, and we know we are because we also to some extent miss being physical. We had all the experiences and we can replay them when we want, but it's funny to be back in a body again. And so you could, for instance, we believe it's called the disco fingers, or where you sort of direct energy out into the corners. And that's a funny way to actually open yourself up to that wide energy field that helps beam that in. And we believe there was a related question that we would like to answer, and that is yes, because there was this, is it true that there is the strongest spirits called Ira? And that was Jan, yes, the one we haven't asked. Perfect. Yes, that is in a sense true. It's the aerial spirits, and we don't necessarily conceive things in strong, because we know that the true strength has to do with applying exactly the right amount of force. Again, we point to that type of technology of nature where you sense that the connection of a precise type of vibration is something that can stir great changes into you. But yes, we do sense that these spirits that you speak of, they can be conceived of in a sense as the guardians of the eighth dimension, or the star guardians. And those are, they are good, they are well described by the term are, are, because it relates to this plurality of auras, a type that there is a very strong energy field that then holds together also the eighth dimensions, because these are in a type, well, the basic framework of what happens to physical reality. And then the upper four are kind of like, they're in a realm of their own, you could say, though connected to these ones. And the eighth is type of a bridge where that happens. So that's not a bad way to approach it. And we thank you and bless the both of you for your questions, and we love you for them. Thank you. Yes. Autumn Rose asks, blessings, will, intention, and visualization with the body of cancer causing viruses or illness. Thank you very much. Yes, we thank you for that question, that poetic answer. Well, in a certain aspect, yes, intentions and visualizations will rid the bodies of cancer and other things, and can do it. But it's quite uncommon notice that this is actually what is often achieved in the sixth dimension. That is to say, you can sort of manipulate physical space in your head through the direct intercession of will. So instant manifestation is a way to think of it. But in this density that you're used to, you often need quite stronger permission slips to do this. So you can't necessarily just dream your dreams away. So for instance, we could use the image of a prisoner, and it would be, well, from the laws of the all, there would be no problem in this person just focusing on being on the other side of the fence and being free, and then popping into that situation, simply shifting timelines and not being in prison anymore. But we do know that that is something that's not necessarily achievable by human beings, because it requires a very much a sage-like level of concentration. And so stronger permission slips are often required. No, that is why sometimes when these miracles of acute, we forget the word, but the cancer stops metastasizing, remission, is often connected to some greater type of death experience, or true appreciation of life, or spiritual realization. And so there's nothing wrong with also using the basic permission slips of cancer treatments or surgery or chemotherapy, as the idea that this can actually rid you of a cancer. And there it will be helpful to combine these techniques. And then, but it's important then that you view the treatments also as something positive, because other than that, it adds to the idea of disease within your life. So the answer is both a yes and a no. But we do sense that in most humans who are dealing with this problem and have, in a sense, manifested this problem, it would be it would do well to explore all venues of experience to try and combat it. And we would also recommend the use of certain types of powerful plant medicines. And we are, for instance, pointing to some experiences that has been had with what you call psilocybin mushrooms, which is in and of itself a very powerful entity that has manifested on Earth to guide humanity into certain experiences, and that is now returning to guide you into new types of medicine, for instance. And so these are some of the things that we would encourage in dealing with these diseases. And we thank you very much for that question. And we bless you and we love you, and know that we and all the heavens are with you in that fight against an evil that grows within. It is for you to overcome. It is possible, and it has already happened in another bright future. Yes, it says. I will just scan back, guys. Yes, Jana asked this question: how to restore the nervous system to be more stable in the ongoing noise when not in nature. Yes. You see, what you can do here is to remember certain vibrations. Know that, for instance, it's notice that often when your mind is a little stressed out, it will revert to what you call maybe having a tune on your mind, or you know that replaying of a refrain that you have heard somewhere, and it's actually a type of, you could almost think of it as a protective incantation. So instead of dealing with the influx, the mind goes into a repetition pattern where it repeats something that was an easy pattern to hold on to, and and that's how you end up with the ABBA's Dancing Queen on your mind for the entire afternoon while you're downtown shopping. And that is an example we, for instance, could use, and when we know that some of you are playing it in your minds right now. So this is the idea that that you can actually use this consciously, because you have a base vibration. So before you go out and open the door, just take a moment and ask yourself, oh, where am I? Take a deep breath and an exhale. And then, where am I seated today? And what would be the type of vibration that could do me well? And it could be, often it would be something stomach related, because that grounds and centers you, and you could go. And we know, of course, it can be hard when you're around people, but on your way there, when you have an opportunity, just return to that vibration, either outwardly or inwardly. That is, for instance, a great help. And you will see monks of the Buddhist persuasion doing this, for instance, when they have to be out and about in the world and retreating to certain mantras or techniques in order to realign and center their energy again. And this can be very helpful. And of course, you can pick up a type of crystal you like, and then keep that vibration as a protecting to you, and as a protective agent, and turn your mind towards that if crystals are a permission slip that you resonate with and that you're very sensitive to. That would be helpful. And so these are some of the techniques that we sense will be good, because know that your heart is opening, and that it's very understandable that when your heart is opening, it also becomes like yes, almost like an amusement park that might give up a lot of noise and excitement and joy and thrills and stuff that's hard for you to handle, and that might also seem compelling to other peoples to have a look at what's going on. And so these types of centering vibrations would be very helpful. But know that you are helping to raise the vibrations of others just by being around them. So there will also come a time where you again will feel far more in resonance with your surroundings and with the urban environments that you'll begin to build over the next 30 to 40 years. You will also begin to see a great change in the pace and the vibration of how humans in general are living. And you have indeed seen the beginnings of this in 2020, where that, well, turning down the frenetics, or turning up turning down the outer disturbances and turning up the inner disturbances, has really done a number on a lot of people, identity-wise, and you're realizing what you're by that also coming into the pace and rhythm of of your own hearts, which is where you feel good. And we bless you for that question. We sense that it was helpful to many. Yes. And then I think we will go down to some of the more general interest questions. Yes, Ketul asks, do you live in the sun? Can you describe how life in the sun is? What other species live there? My earliest childhood memory is of people living on the sun, but it didn't make sense as I grew up. Yes, but we also sense that you have a very strong connection to our energy and to the solar body in itself. And yes, we live in the sun or on the sun. That is to say, we're not physical, but we sustain ourselves in a homeostasis with the energetic pattern of the sun. And it's not the same energy that's emitted down here. So we have become so aligned with that high vibrational energy that makes life grow and wither if it's not regulated by other forces, that we are able to exist there. And within that space, there is a great harmony. You could think of it as, it's almost like being inside of a diamond that's self-luminescent. There are fewer other ways to describe the infinitesimal beauty we see in the fractions of light that play out in the sun, and the beautiful movements of how this energy is supposed to radiate. And also we point you to the fact that you have been attracted to this manifestation today, and we have interacted energetically with you quite a lot in this session, because we believe that the sun is a place where you resonate with a lot, and that is to say, you have a very free-flowing energy, a fiery energy, an energy that's able to take in and then let out and move these bricks of heat and warmth, and the memories that you have of that childhood is in a sense of your own future selves ascending to the sun, or your own future manifestations calling you there, because you are a type of a sun warrior, and we're getting, for some reason, we're also connecting you to the worship of the different sun cults and the sun pyramid in, is it called Teotihuacan? We forget the name of the ancient deserted city, and we believe it's Teotihuacan in northern Mexico. But the great pyramids there and the sacred sun cult was one that you were quite connected to in a couple of lifetimes, and where you carried out a type of also sacrificial rituals of bringing forward different animals and harvests, and occasionally even human bloodletting, in order to let this energy transfix and move all the spiritual energy of the place, and move all the spiritual energy that's within you. And you're really waking up to this emergence of spiritual energy within you. So know that you are, in a sense, the one who lives in the sun. You are already becoming that, and a precursor for that. And we are so grateful to see humans moving in this type of next level experience of you becoming something that we are now able to come to, because it wasn't certain for a long time whether or not you would jump onto this timeline, but now it is quite certain. There are not many flux given that would prevent that, and we are very grateful for that. And we thank you, bless you, and love you on your journey. Yes, disco. Tahin asks, what is it like before your soul is born or granted individuality? Are you just free floating in source without a sense of identity or self? Or has your template always been there to begin with? Our template always been there to begin with. Yes, this is a very beautiful question, and we thank you for it. In a sense, your template is created, but your template is, well, you could think of it, and then we again will go back to that eighth dimensional vision of you. You could say how your individuality is beamed down, because that's an emanation of one of the 144,000 emanations of the human perfection, singular oversoul in the 11th dimension. And then that sort of divides itself into different subsets of levels, because these, well, it's not only connected to the human oversoul, but to all the oversouls that are then interacting and having different experiences. So in a way, you're being brought back to that. But the way you could think of it is that in the eighth dimension, yes, you are in a sense already conceived as that unique personality. You are, but it's within a far greater sense of possibility. So much as you're beginning to understand that your physical body is actually a conglomeration of a lot of codes, or what you thought to be junk DNA, which is simply DNA that isn't necessarily very active in your experience, but can become active by certain forces, or, well, the growing of consciousness, or the influx of matters, or so forth and so on. And that's actually what relates to you in that experience, that you are then created as this field of possibility. And then that field of possibility is sort of condensed down to what you could think of as the grain of truth, or the kernel of the eternal overflowing rice. So it's the idea that there is this thing inserted that then generates your Merkaba. And in that sense, you could think of the eighth dimension as the Merkaba. So that's that vision of what you can become energetically in this lifetime. And that is, in a sense, already created. And so your personal experience when you die will often undergo what has been thought of in one tradition as a purgatorial experience. So you come through some of these great shifts where life passed before your eyes, and there's a condensation of both pleasure and pain, until you move into that higher, merge with that higher realization of yourself. And so you know exactly why you want to go to Earth and wanted to experience, and you also know your connections back into the oversoul, at least as far as it's meaningful for you to know. And so in a sense, yes, you already exist in that space, but it is from a state of sublime perfection. And that's also why you can't necessarily access it while you are in the time space where you are, well, caught in the world of opposition would be a way to describe it, or playing the game of opposition, of being something and not being something else. And that's perhaps the most meaningful way to a beautiful question that we bless and love you for. Yes, I think there was some synchronistic question here. I connected with a woman in India to offer energy healing. The night before scheduled time, she had quite an experience involving me and light beings. Was this Eflin clock working with us? Well, yes, in a sense, he was instrumental. This being was instrumental, but we also sense that it was almost a host of angels. That is to say, we're getting this image of sort of these radiant gyres, spheres within spheres within spheres, turning in different paces and rotations, and then with different vibrations. Singing within it is the choir of angels that surround the pillar of fire. And that was, in a sense, what was coming through, because there was so much of the divine energy, that energy which is somehow sometimes meant God the Father, and when it emerges down into humanity, it's also known sometimes as Sophia, or divine wisdom, holy feminine wisdom. And this was in many ways the energies that were working in, and Efton clock was present, but we do sense that this was almost like, we use the word conspiracy in the most positive way, but a conspiracy of the entire cosmos in order to try to manifest and mobilize this, because it has to do with a great strengthening of your energetic field. And we sense that in these coming months, your body will begin to catch up to that influx of energy. And there, don't be surprised if you begin to notice people acting slightly different to you, but mainly in a positive way, because you begin to exude this type of quiet, saint-like light that's actually very transformative for healing for other people around you. So that is the answer, and you hopefully sense our love and blessings, not only from us but from the heavens on high, and we thank you. Yes. I'll just, I think there was, oh yes, Davante asks, when will we master crystal technologies and/or crystal manipulation for healing and learning? Yes, you see, you have in a sense mastered it when you had the experience of Lemuria, and there's a lot of information returning from this space now. This was in a time when humans were merged with other star energies and therefore lived out these type of more astral existences on this earth plane, and from which you have dropped down in order to then return and have a different emergence into the astral. And so we sense that crystals, you will not begin to, if we are using the word master, that is to say, explore their physical potential, then we see a timeline of 1700 years, but you are beginning to learn a lot about these energetic grids and the way you can tap them. So we sense within the next 25 years, approaching 23 years, there will be the development of a technology which can actually use it can use the density patterns or the vibrational configurations of certain crystals to run through subtle energies. Or yes, we're actually getting like almost like quantum energy, something that has the character of electrons, but it has a more again, this type of randomized interaction with a fixed pattern. And that will begin to teach you that essentially your memories are of the same structure. That is to say, they're kept in the Akashic, and then they are retrieved by certain, you could say, metamorphosis or conscious, semi-conscious shifts of your perceptual field, which allows you to retrieve different memories and then bring these memories into your perception of yourself. And when you begin to understand this, you will also begin to see that surrounding yourself with different crystals and then bringing through their vibrational spectrums, by instance, by singing it out or amplifying it through different light apparati, or really feeling them and taking their energy into the heart, will help you to access some of those memories that are stored in the Akashic, that has to do with your previous incarnations, both as humans, but also all the previous counterpart lives that you are playing out in time and space and in the upper dimensions. And that is something that you can begin to explore now, and that's growing bigger and bigger. And we know we spoke of channeling always being kind of a niche phenomenon. Crystals will not remain a niche phenomenon. It will become something that it will be natural that people have in their homes, and that they have certain crystals who generate a vibe within their home that's healthy for them. So a type of, you could say, crystalline feng shui, or interior decorating, energetic interior decorating, and it will become very weird to be a human being who doesn't have that. It will be a sign of someone who's not aligned, and that will of course begin to be strange. And then what happens is that, you know, once the plurality begins to explore something, people will necessarily become more in tune and aligned with that phenomenon. So that is how we read it, and we bless you, and we sense that you would have great joy in connecting with the energy of emerald we're getting, and we bless you and love you for it. Yes, I will just see. The man asks, I was born in, is this Aquarius Ophiuchus? And it seems it's fairly new to discovery, and she has control of the snake, as I understand it, a great healer. Can you tell me about it and how it might work into my life? Yes, I'm not quite sure by the first part of the question, but we'll ask them about the snakes, definitely. Yes, see, you always try to have that relationship to the snakes. And we know so many of you are, in a sense, mesmerized by the reptiles, and in a sense also repulsed by them, because they hold a very different vibration. But they were, in a sense, your great teacher in olden days. And the olden days, we mean way through different civilizational experiences and kinds of had. And it has to do, well, for instance, with the magic of the snake. It's a creature that's completely aligned with its energy, so every part of its body sort of serves purpose where it can vibrate instantly out to everything, and that's very compelling. And it also harvests the energy of the sun directly. But there's also the knowledge of serpents hold different wisdoms and have a different perception of higher dimensional reality that they're able to transmit to humans who are able to interact with them. And notice also the figure that this is what is known in both. We believe there are American Christian sects where they're called the snake handlers, which is a different type of Appalachian folk religion, you could call it, but which hails back to arcane phenomenons of snake charming, and what in antiquity was known as the Kista Mystica, or the mystic chest, and which was a chest connecting snakes that you would both use to animate the fear, the mortal fear in a person, but you could also use the venom to generate an experience that would bring them into healing. And so a way that this is becoming evident to you is partially because you're sensing, well, the basic vertebrate structure of having a spine, and that having a spine and having energy flow up through it is calling out the inner snake energy, or what you know as the kundalini in you. But it's also, well, bringing forward some places in your energetic field where you may have believed yourself to be encumbered, and then it's sort of showing you how that energy can twirl out of itself and begin to heal you in different aspects. So that is the wisdom that we would like to impart on you on behalf of your serpent friend. Thank you. Yes. Perfect. So thank you for all the love you show each other and me down here, people. That's very lovely. And I'm also getting a little tired, so I think I will jump off soon. But I think there's perhaps 1212 asks, can you tell me what triggered a deep sad emotion which made me cry during your answer, where you talked about living in a little hut? Yes. Yes, but see, you are aligned with this energy of the 12. 12 is the Fibonacci numbers, and it has a growth from the basic into the complex. So you're like a soulful being that's already connected to these pristine memories, and you have lived out quite a lot of lifetimes. We sense, for instance, in what's called Polynesia or Micronesia, to be exact, these places where you felt a very open connection to the land, and that's a type of remembrance that's coming forward. And we would just like to remind you that anything is possible, that there is that hut is actually waiting for you, because that there is this type of, well, emotional connection to your own being, situated in that quiet song of that quiet noise of the song of the cicadas, which is calling your heart forward. And we thank you so much for letting our energy and the visions that you bring us from our shared collective human oversoul, that letting them grow and touch you, because that's the way that we grow this positive reality together, that we are seeking to realize for you. So we thank you very much for that, and we love you and bless you on your quest. Know that your wishes are already fulfilled. Yes, I think okay. This is an interesting question to top it off, and I think most people got two questions answered. Um, so I think that's good. But Tehin asks, have one other question. Is it possible that, for example, my father has draconian spiritual DNA and my maternal line is Arcturian? Is it possible that one lineage is too high vibrational and cancels out the other? Yes, it is. It is quite possible, and of course it is a way of perceiving this, because we strongly assume that your parents were humans as you were, but it's and we are of course joking here, but yes, it is quite possible, and usually this is actually what happens to a lot of what is termed stasis, is also that you come into a space where you're actually trying to renegotiate a lot of foreign or disparate energies into the union of a human being, and the union of a human being living in harmony with the world and their expression. And so we sense that, of course, your parents also had other energies in them, but yes, that this match, that also follow your intuition, that we sense there was something, a fierceness of expression, and like a determination in your father that was cancelled out by senses more Arcturian energy, which is more melancholic, more soothing, more not necessarily passive, but at least pensive, or has a great deal of temperance to it. And so that is that's very possible, and that you are, in a sense, all of you, not only you, but living a life to integrate these energies and make them speak together. And that is why that the information that we gather here, and that we hold from our shared human experience, we transmit it back to the star family, such as you do, and to all these species, and they are learning how to negotiate and to come together vibrationally in far more unified fields than they had thought imaginable. And this is in many ways the beauty that humanity is serving the cosmos. It is that we are becoming that unified field of light, and that light, it helps to show the way for both those who have gone before you, but also those who will come after you. And therefore, human beings, we are so grateful for the love that you have created and shared with us this day. We were so grateful that we could reach back into time and show you that the sun is as much your home as the earth, and that both places serve to nourish you with that unbreakable life force which flows within you. And therefore, you have our blessings. You have our love and you have our continued guidance. Call for us by remembering the warm, soothing light of the sun, or call in your galactic and angelic families by remembering your infinite being. We will give you a certain type of vibrational transmission that has made sense to us in our own ascendance, and we will leave you with that. Ooh, ooh, ooh. May you rest in this eternal knowing, our love. That was fun, guys. Truly, their energy is really compelling, and it's funny because it feels human, but in an expansive way, and just all the love and beautiful and insightful questions, and damn, what a blast. Thank you, guys, and oh, I remember to say this again. Thank you for sharing, liking, commenting, speaking. Of course, I am available for personal sessions should any of you want to commit. And thank you for those who are already working with me in that way. It's also a learning and loving experience. Blessings to you. May the rest of this Sunday treat you well. All the best.